So sometimes you'll find that the front gear platforms of the Solar Breeze NX may have a bit of wear, and if they get wear in some areas, we can have a situation where the motor and front paddle wheel are turning, but the front bumper wheels aren't turning because there's been wear in the front gear platform, and so you'll have to replace a front gear platform from time to time with the Solar Breeze NX. First thing you have to do is to remove the pontoon. The pontoon, of course, is the gray part on the bottom. Flip the unit over, you remove the chlorine tray, and also remove the debris tray. And you'll notice that there are 5 screws embedded on each side of the pontoon, and then there are 5 screws on tabs on each side on the inside of the pontoon. Once again, a number 10 Torx screwdriver bit. I use an extension with an electric drill. It's probably the easiest way to do it. You can, if you have a long enough screwdriver, do it by hand if you like. Make sure your screwdriver bit is secured on the head of the screw. And then you just go and loosen all of the screws in the embedded screw bosses inside the pontoon like this. And then you remove the screws on the tabs on the inside of the pontoon also. Just set those aside. So I don't actually remove the screws here, I leave them in place, which also makes it easier for replacing the pontoon. So let's get these out. Sometimes you have to fool around a little bit to make sure the bit is lodged in the screw head. So there you go. So now all of the screws, the inside ones are removed. The outside ones here, or the ones embedded in the pontoons, are loosened. And you should be able to just lift it up like that. I don't take these screws out. I like to leave them in. It makes the reassembly easier. So for now, we'll just set this pontoon aside. So to replace the front support platform, there's 3 screws that hold this platform in place. You simply remove those 3 screws. Lift the platform up and remove the platform from the paddle wheel by just removing the paddle wheel hub. Take those screws out. I like to put the screws inside so that I know where inside the unit when I'm working on a repair, so I know where they are. Push that paddle wheel back in place on this hub over on this side. You'll notice that that this tire, the axle for the replacement front gear platform that we're going to put on fits through there. So that's how the assembly will go in. And there is on this side of the assembly, there's an insert where the axle for the front tire actually goes into that insert. So you have to get those lined up. So first of all, put the tire through the hole there, line it up with the hole in the insert. Put the paddle wheel hub back onto the paddle wheel, slide that together tightly, and then you will, let me turn this over here, and then you'll slide the axle through the tire, and you'll just line it up with the insert, and you can feel it when it slips in place into the insert, and you'll notice it's in place when the edge of the gear platform is actually below the edge of the top housing here, so you can feel that that's set properly in place. So we'll just turn that around over here. The new platform is in place, and so all that's left to do is to screw it down. So just replace those 3 screws we took out. This last one's the hardest one when you have big fingers, but we'll do our best here. You might want a needle nose. Sometimes I use a pair of needle nose pliers to just hold it in place. There you go. So now the platform's back in place. Turn it on, make sure everything is running smoothly. And then I also encourage that you take some white lithium grease, available almost anywhere, various varieties. And while the unit is running, just grease up those gear assemblies on the gear platform. Generously, make sure there's lots of grease. Grease the bevel gear assembly here as well. And also a little bit where the bearing surfaces are. So just get it nice, so it runs more smoothly, and also that'll help extend the life of the gear platform. So you've replaced the front support platform and you're ready to reinstall the pontoons. Take your unit, jiggle it a little bit so all the screws are down, and then I like to take and simply make sure that these rear axle screws line up with the rear axles. Drop that in place, and then do the same with the front. Make sure that the front axle screws line up with the front axles. Drop that in place. And then I actually leave the axles till last to tighten up, because I know they're in place where they're supposed to be. So we tighten up the center 3 screws on this side. And then I'll do the rear, and then the front. And then turn it around here and we'll do the same thing. We know that these axles are lined up, so I like to do the center screws here first. Tighten those up. I like to do the rear. And the front. Away we go. So we've got the outside screws all in place. And now you'll notice that the front screws and rear screws for the inside are actually a little bit shorter. So you'll see that you have 2 different types of screws. A 20 millimeter screw, and I think that's a 14 millimeter screw. So the shorter screws go in the 2 front tab locations and the 2 rear tab locations. So let's put those in first. There are times in life when I wish I had smaller fingers. And then we'll do the remainder of the screws. And we'll shift it around. And there you have it. Now you've removed and replaced the pontoon. Turn the unit on. Make sure the paddle wheels are operating freely so that there's no binding or anything like that from the process. Everything seems to be working fine, so we're all good. Find the debris tray and chlorine tray that you removed. So with the chlorine tray, you'll notice that there's a handle area here. It goes towards the outside, and you just set it there so that the guide rails with the chlorine tray slide inside the guides here. And just slide it in like that. And then the same thing with the debris tray. You'll notice there's guide rails here that slide inside this area here. So just slide it in, make sure those are lined up. Press it in. Make sure it's pressed all the way to the back, because if you don't press the debris tray all the way to the back, you could have debris that actually escapes as it's coming through. And it's all ready to go. Flip it back over, set it in your pool, and enjoy your nice clean pool.